Hello and welcome to a conversation on the Daily Bern. I'm your host, Eric Miller, joined today by an awesome progressive fighter from the great state of Florida, Dr. Cindy Banyai. How you doing, Cindy?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for taking some time to chat with me about your campaign. Um, I think I actually discovered you through the No Dems Left Behind uh, a PAC or platform or whatever. They're doing really great work. I've seen some roundtables and stuff. And in a nutshell, maybe I'll just cue it. What is No Dems Left Behind? How would you define them?
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited to be part of a coalition like No Dem Left Behind. I mean, what we are Democrats running in deep red districts all across the US. We're the candidates that usually don't get any attention. And
Right.
that's the point. And so what we decided to do is band together and pool our resources and work together, fundraise together, support each other. And we have a great team over there that helps to bring attention. So we had amazing fundraisers with like Mark Hamill and Deborah Messing and Rosie O'Donnell. We had a town hall with Andrew Yang and Cenk Unger and recently Chelsea Handler. I mean, it's hard to even keep up. People like that I had been, fans of for years were out there supporting us because they believe that every Democrat deserves a shot to win their seat, and that's what we're all about.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's great. It's like that 50-state strategy, right? If you neglect districts, even some districts are gerrymandered in such a way to be neglected, to be a safe seat or whatever. But,
Mhm.
you're not going to change that unless you fight, unless you support,
Yeah.
and we're in a policy-centric era, right? So, Democrats now, especially progressives, have a people-centered platform, which speaks to people across party lines, right, across district leanings and so forth. So I think that's a critical. I love seeing that. I'm glad I discovered you through them. So go check out No Dems Left Behind because there's a lot of good candidates there all around the country. I want to get to your platform. Obviously, you're running in Florida's 19th district for House of Representatives. It's currently held by a Republican who is vacating the seat. So it's you against a different terrible Republican than the normal incumbent terrible Republican. And we'll talk about him and the variety of ways in which he's terrible and so forth. But a little bit about you, maybe let's get to the news of the day a little bit. One of the big issues, obviously, is the passing of RBG and trying to, you know, fight that fight. Just give me your thoughts on her, on that seat, on what Democrats can do, and so forth.
I was broadcasting live when I got the news of RBG's passing, and it was earth shattering. Frankly, it was we put so much emphasis on her. She was a hero to women and for the fight for equality in so many ways. And we really, we were looking for her to hang on. So we didn't have this battle knowing that Donald Trump was going to put the worst possible person in that job, because that was actually one of the only reasons he was ever elected, was so that he could get that hyper right conservative judgeship in not only just the Supreme Court but up and down the judicial appointments. That was the strategy that was going on behind the insanity on the front, was that he's just plugging in. He's appointed more judicial appointments than any other president in history in such a short time. And it was all a strategy so that they could have this stacked court and putting young people on the bench. So, for me, it's really just, it was heartbreaking to have her gone. But it's, it really just emboldened us and emboldened me that we got to fight. We got to win this election. We got to flip these districts. We got to take the Senate. We got to take the presidency, because we cannot have this anymore. And we got to fight right now and start convincing people that we cannot make this appointment before the election.
Here, here, yeah, yeah. They're already scheduling hearings and stuff like that. I'm prepared to go to DC and raise hell. We have to pull out all the stops to prevent that. I wish Democratic leadership would fight a little bit harder. I don't know if you want to comment on that or whatever, but you know,
Well,
it,
I'll say I'm a former professional boxer, so fighting for what I believe in and sticking it out when it's tough is just something that's second nature to me.
mhm.
And I'll say, listen, I do. I wish that people in general would stand up and fight for what they believe in. we get in this complacency where we just are like, oh, we're going to do what's easy.
Yeah.
Right. And instead of doing what's right, even though it's a challenge. And that's me. I'm ready to do what's right, even if it's hard.
Right on. I want to ask a little bit about, and I've heard you talk about it. What inspired you to run? And I know your district is a deeply red district, so that might cause you to temper your message a little bit sometimes. But I know you've maybe not, but I know I've heard you tell the story about comparing the Japanese healthcare system to our for-profit healthcare system in terms of delivering one of your children and things like that. So can you tell that story? And is that what inspired you to run? One of the things platform policy wise that inspired you to run?
Well, the healthcare story that is usually the one that I tell first and foremost is about my youngest daughter, who for the first 2 years of her life had a rare blood disease. And while she was fighting for her life, I was fighting the insurance company. And I just believe that no American should be faced with medical bankruptcy. Like, it's a normal thing in the United States. It's a leading cause of homelessness. And it's a leading cause of, being needed to use social services like food services and things like that, because healthcare is so expensive and it wrecks people's finances. It doesn't have to be that way. I lived in 2 countries actually with nationalized healthcare, and they work amazingly well. People are healthy. When they are sick, they go to the doctor. If they need something, you go. There's not a second thought about it. And the way that we treat our bodies and ourselves in those circumstances is revolutionary. So, I got my master's and my doctorate in Japan. And so I had actually researched this from a public administration standpoint. We can absolutely do this. We can streamline the system. We can create a government program that functions and works and provides healthcare, which is a public good to people, because it's the right thing to do. And frankly, we can make the economic argument. It's the economically sound thing to do.
Right. Yeah. Morally right, politically right, financially right, results wise, it's better. Right. So I'll throw this out front. You don't take any corporate PAC money. You're a grassroots funded campaign. So Cindy's website is cindybanyai.com. So, please go give her a donation, and I'll mention that several more times as we go. And you kind of tick all the boxes on the progressive policy platform. So let's just go kind of through a few of those. You have a thing on your website, Workforce for Tomorrow bill. I was curious what that meant specifically. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time here in Southwest Florida researching education and workforce and the combination of that. And what I really want to see is us start to plug the holes that there are in the system. That's what I was researching, frankly, is where are students falling off? Are they getting into pre-K? Are they falling off at 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, high school graduation? Are they getting into a career or a technical college? And then when they do that, are they getting all the way through? And then are they getting a job that we need here? Because actually each one of those points is where people fall off. Right. And what we need to do is kind of look at that continuum and start to fill the gaps. And there's equity issues with all of that. So what I really want to do is help to fund additional research like the one that I had conducted, so that we have a good understanding of that, and then start to fund what we need to do to fill those gaps. So getting students through their program and then into jobs, understanding what the alignment is. We have such a messed up system in Florida when it comes to some of these things. There's actually disincentives to not only just completion, but to different programs. And one example of that is that we will produce 900 cosmetologists a year in our region to 300 cosmetology jobs. And the reason that is because, first of all, it sounds kind of fun. So a lot of people want to do it. And then they can fill those seats, and then the state makes it easier for them to be paid. Whereas we have 1,000 openings a year for people in entry-level administration jobs, and 0 technical certifications that are offered in it, even though they could, because those are less fun jobs, and the state doesn't pay the technical colleges in the same way. So for me, it's about retooling the system to work better, investing in evaluation, investing in education at every step of the way, so that people themselves can have good quality careers and live in the communities they love.
Boy, that's really great. I haven't heard of anything similar to that. That's really, and there are a couple other things on your website, and I encourage people to go check it out, cindybanyai.com. There's, you have other bills like this one. You have a Save Our Social Security, Save Our Vets. I forget, there's a few, but what that shows is, you're running on a generally progressive platform, and you sort of, work towards Medicare for all, Green New Deal principles, and I'll ask about the environment in a moment. But not only are you signed on to those things, women's rights, living wage, blah blah blah, right? All the normal ones, but you also have put forethought into, should you win, these are the pieces of legislation you're going to start working on, right? And I think that's impressive. It's not, you're not just kind of towing the progressive line. You're actually thinking, when I get there, this is what I can work on. I'm not trying to project that onto you.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, I'm a very different type of candidate, right? Like you said, I'm not bought and sold by a PAC or corporations. I do have a personal story, but I'm a technocrat, actually, guys. I'm a technocrat in policy design and evaluation. I am part of the faculty here at a local university in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. I have researched and published on good governance around the world. I am using that knowledge to apply to the here and now. I'm also all about planning. So I want to have the big vision and the goals and how we're going to get there and how we're going to collaborate and how we're going to make it from a national plan to a local implementation. These are things I think about every single day. And I've helped hundreds of organizations, as well as more than 25 countries, do. So when I started running for this seat, I'm like, let me put this to work for us, because I see a bunch of clowns getting elected, getting bought and paid for, and getting elected. And they don't have a slightest idea about how government can work. They bash government. We need government, everybody. Let me just be the first to tell you, we need it because you want it. I've worked in research in countries that have, don't have the economy and don't have the sophistication in their government. And I promise you don't want to do that. People die from simple things, like without having proper regulations for housing. When an earthquake or natural disaster comes, people die, right? I always tell the story in the classes I teach about, Jakarta not having a public waste management system, and the rolling dumpster fire, literal rolling dumpster fires, is how they solve for trash management there. Do you want that? Or would you just rather have to pay a small amount so your city council can figure out how to get trash trucks and get that trash out of your house and manage safely? That to me seems like a simple investment. And we forget that all of these things are what we pay for with our government. We want government to work like an operating system, a well-humming machine in the background that just helps us do what we want to do, right? That's what I envision.
Yeah. And I love that you use the term public goods, because that's what they are, right? That's, once you understand that, then that's one of those ways, hopefully, you break out of that propagandized, big government, right wing. It's funny in this day and age too, that is one of the tenets of the traditional Republican Party, is small government. And yet they're defending fascism and stormtroopers. And, if you say, hey, let's defund the police, even just a little, it's their hair catches on fire, right? Which is, you need to sort that out a little bit. In the, what I mean?
I'll see. Listen, I like you said earlier, I'm running in a very red district, but I made the choice to be authentically progressive, especially once the pandemic hit. I said, you know what? I'm done playing. This is what we need. I'm going to go out there and use my skills as an educator to tell everybody why we need these things, because they can see it now more than ever. Yeah. And that's what I've done. And I'll sit and talk to folks who will say all of these lines, and I'll walk them through, don't you really actually want roads? And the best one that I had was actually in the debate that you were talking about, in a very hostile debate, was where they were talking about socialism. I'm like, how about the road that you drove in on? Oh, and by the way, you like the police, right?
Right.
Guess where that comes from? Those are funded with tax dollars, right? That's a public good that you've invested in. You like that, right? And so when you catch them on it, it makes them think, it makes people think a little bit. But what we really have to kind of understand sometimes is we're functioning on emotions, right? Most people aren't policy wonks like me. Most people don't love this stuff and eat, breathe, and sleep it, They just want, they want it to work, right? They want to have good things in their neighborhood. And if you keep telling that message and be like, this is how this policy is going to work, all that ridiculous, words that you say about it, calling it socialist or whatever, all of that aside, this is what you really want, right? You don't want this crazy thing over here. You want this nice thing over here. Well, I'm an expert in making the things nice. So why don't you help me get elected?
Right on. Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about your opponent in a moment, but let me pull up the district and just give you an opportunity to brag on it a little bit. So, districts are intentionally gerrymandered in crazy ways, and it's one of those techniques to suppress vote turnout and so forth, right? So I like to show the district. So this is Florida 19, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Naples, Marco Island. But it's Southwest Florida. It's, like we said, it's an R+13 districts. Just tell me about your district. Brag about it. What's awesome about Florida 19? What do you love about it?
Well, you see that it's close to the Gulf there, right? We are south. We are warm all year round. We joke that we have, really two seasons and they kind of run into each other. We have, 8 months of the year where it's 95 degrees and, the remaining 3 months where it's, 85 degrees. The weather is beautiful. The sun shines. And we have those beautiful beaches, and we have an amazing mix of folks who live here. And we get to kind of build this place, we're not as developed as other places around Florida. And so we have a real opportunity to preserve our environment here, as well as create governance structures that I like to say, create a Southwest Florida where the sun shines on everyone.
Lovely. That's awesome. Let's talk about the environment, right? So that being on this coast, the storms traditionally come from the east, right? So, but that's not to say your district is immune by any stretch of the imagination to the effects of climate change. Can you talk about sort of where you stand on that? And one thing I noticed about your website is there are a lot of links to platforms on the UN website, which I thought was really great. Like you said, you're a technocrat, a wonk, right? So you're citing your references, and it's really thorough. Again, cindybanyai.com. Can you talk about your vision for environmental policy, starting from a local level for your district on the Gulf to sort of a global perspective?
Well, yeah. So for us, the water is important, but yeah, those hurricanes, that is a really important thing for us. The superpowered hurricanes that get charged over the Gulf and come at us are a real big issue. We have flooding issues with that. Yeah, we see the effects of climate change happening all the time. I had to evacuate for Hurricane Irma. There's damage to my house still this day from Hurricane Irma because it's hard to recover, even when that was only a Category 3 by the time it hit us. So, we have a major concern about it, but we all do with the sea level rise and, all the interconnected parts of climate change. So what I want to do is make sure that we are, focusing on the reality on the ground, which is also investing in some of the climate change mitigation strategies that we are going to need as a coastal community. In terms of, making sure that we have mangroves and things like that. That's really important. But we also need to address, of course, the fact that climate change is real. My opponent doesn't believe in that. Well, he does. He's confused. It used to be called global warming, and now it's climate change. And he doesn't think that people have an effect on it, despite the fact that demonstrably, with thousands of scientists, coming around a consensus that there's anthropogenic causes to global warming and climate change. But anyway, so, we need to also, make sure that we are doing our part to reach net zero. That's just what we need to do. And you need to have people that understand that and recognize it and are willing to work and make the hard choices and build policy around it. I'll tell you, this is where my policy building skills will come in handy. I know the government levers and interventions that we need to design to be able to do this kind of stuff without causing major problems, issues, and I take a very systemic approach so I can see out and beyond where we might get caught up, and that's going to be an asset for us. Right. But going up, so because I love the fact that you pointed out that I'm connected. Oh, here I'm backwards to the Sustainable Development Goals, and actually you see there's my pin. So I spent, for the past 2 years, I have been a representative to the United Nations on behalf of the International Association for Community Development. So I am very interested in promoting community-based involvement in decisions at the highest level. I got to go to the United Nations General Assembly twice, and as well as participate in the high-level political forum on climate change and sustainable development for all last year. And even prior to that, in my work, I was working on connecting the sustainable development goals to policies. This is how we're going to connect to the global community. This is important. We can do this by setting high-level goals and just basically walking it back down by level and understanding what our contribution is to it. And this is really the only way we're going to make these big changes. This is how we're going to reach global net zero. This is how we're going to save the planet for future generations to come, is by having a coordinated effort. It can still be locally controlled, and so all my globalist people, just that's not a thing. So just relax. We're just going to collaborate together. If there's no control, we're just going to decide, hey, maybe we should work on climate change together. Here are the goals. Let's all aim our light in the same direction. That's what it's about. And I'm happy to have been a part of that in my work and continue that work in Congress.
Right. Yeah, I love it. You mentioned your challenge, your opponent. It's Byron Donalds is his name, and yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of a debate you had with him. It seemed to be a sort of less than friendly crowd, but you held your own, and it was admirable. And just a few points I pulled from that. He appears to be somewhat anti-mask. Right. He seems to basically he's a Trump enabler, pretty much. Has he, in the last day and a half, I'm assuming he's stood up to and called out his dear leader Trump for not denouncing white supremacists, right?
Oh, no.
No, he didn't do that.
No. I actually called him out on it too. In one thing that's, to consider about our race here is that the race for Florida 19 is a historic race, no matter who wins, because we have the opportunity to either elect the first woman to this seat or the first African-American to this seat. And my opponent, Byron Donalds, is an African-American man, and he continuously has chosen the path to support Donald Trump in all of his, racist words around it, Right. Yeah. And this was really an opportunity. I hadn't seen any posts or anything about that coming from his camp. And so I said, hey, wondering what you have to say about this. There are other Republicans calling out Donald Trump for not denouncing the white supremacists, and then to putting essentially a call to arms to the Proud Boys, which is in alignment with what him and Don Jr. have done already, in terms of basically encouraging random militia people to go to the polls and intimidate voters. So he's already done this. This is not like a first time that he's said something like this. I said, are you, wondering where you stand on Donald Trump as white supremacy? And, my opponent said, oh, of course I denounce white supremacy, and so does Donald Trump. And he pulled a bunch of video montages, which, by the way, there's like 3 of them that every single Trump enabler has been sharing all over social media for the past 2 days, that show like a handful of times where he said, lukewarm, things about, being anti-racist or, being anti-white supremacist. But he just didn't, and it was just all these, from 2017. See, he did it a long time ago. But I said, are you gaslighting us right now? Because we all heard that. And You're telling us it didn't happen. I said, so, he's really just making excuses for it. And it's really disappointing to see somebody who just wants to be, another enabler of him, and is really not using what he even has admitted in his own life experiences to know about how racism works in this country.
Yeah, that undercuts any credibility he has on, that's, he'll have to live with that once you defeat him, I assume, right? One thing I thought was funny in his, he talks about what he called an association health plan, right? Which, sounds like something people would bemoan as socialism, right? I thought that was a funny thing too. I don't want to get into his platform. Suffice to say, he's a sort of run-of-the-mill, terrible Trump enabling Republican, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to say about him?
Well, I was going to say, all that really is just, we really kind of already had that. Like, that's what I don't understand is he's really just, and listen, he used to be an insurance agent. Good business for him, right? So, you know, he just wants to go back to what it was before, where everybody had their hands in the pot, taking their little piece, and the American, people ended up sicker and without care and coverage when they needed it, because people were selling these bunk plans and they weren't able to get the care they needed, and they were excluded for pre-existing conditions. And this is where I will go back and tell the other story about healthcare that you'll appreciate.
Please.
So when I came to the United States, I married my high school sweetheart after we'd been apart for 12 years, right? And we decided to start our family, and I became pregnant, and I had just moved from Japan after I was finishing my PhD. I could not buy healthcare in the United States, period, anywhere, at all. I couldn't give a company enough money to cover me because I was pregnant, and that's a pre-existing condition. And they would not only just not cover me, but they would not cover the pregnancy itself. And this was a problem. You know, here I am, I'm trying to do what's right and get my prenatal care and take care of myself, but I couldn't. Now, here's the fortunate thing for me. As a student, I was still technically a resident of Japan as I was finishing my doctorate. I still was covered by their national healthcare plan that I had paid into the small amount every month. I was actually able to have my daughter in Cape Coral, Florida, and then have it reimbursed to me by the Japanese national healthcare plan. Wow. Because I had been paying into it, because they prioritize care and coverage, even if you are abroad, if you are still paying into their healthcare system. And so that for me, and that was, by the way, that was just a couple years before Obamacare passed. So that's why, the pre-existing condition thing is something I've lived through. And like I said, denied, like cannot buy because you're pregnant. And listen, there's a lot of women who get pregnant. I think the estimate is something like 23% of the female population is pregnant at any given time. So you're automatically discounting people who, get pregnant, and about 50% of the time, it's not planned, right? So unless you have that coverage and you're paying out, you're talking about excluding people from the system. So we're looking at going potentially back to that in as little as a month or so, right, based on the Supreme Court decisions. And this is horrifying to me. And I don't know who these people are in the United States that haven't had a bad experience in our healthcare system. I don't know who they are. I guess they're just super healthy people and everything's going great for them in their lives. But, accidents happen to people in a lot of different ways, and it can completely derail people's lives in the United States in ways that other countries and other people simply do not have to experience.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, you're so right. And that goes back to that earlier point about, keeping that seat open. Like, that's an all hands on deck battle. We can't let that, be reversed, pre-existing conditions and so forth. I'm curious about, so I like to ask this question of like the deeply red district Democrats that are running unabashed progressivism, right? So, you're running what I call a people-centered platform. I got that from Carrie Evelyn Harris. But we feel like Trump exhaustion, right? Like every day, it's like 4 years. Like, even if I was not a political junkie or whatever, I would just want him gone because it's exhausting, right? How do you get that at all in a red district? Like, what's the sense of your platform overlaid to Trump exhaustion in a red district? What does that look like?
For me, I just focus on what I want to do for the people of Southwest Florida. That's what I always do. Right. I try to only react to the Trump stuff that's really, really important. Right. I guess as a wonk, I'm always looking so when the election thing, when he started saying, oh, we're going to, the ballots, and we're going to send people out and we're going to go, and they started looking into essentially how do they get Trump electorates into the electoral college, then my radar is going off. So I don't get as much into this, the mud of all this stuff, because it is exhausting, because he's trying to exhaust you. He's trying to be as outlandish as possible, so you don't see him and his kleptocracy stealing from our country. You don't see him systematically dismantling our government. You don't see him challenging our democracy. So he and his people can stay in power. That's really kind of where we're at right now. And it's about corporate greed and all that stuff too. I mean, so, if he keeps calling people and saying crazy stuff, everybody gets so inflamed that you don't notice all the really hard, wonky stuff over here happening. But I do. So I keep my eye on that. And I talk to people about why that's important, why it's worrisome for me to see these rollbacks in our government, why it's important that we recognize that, we are, and I'll throw this back to my district here, we have FEC campaign finance violations that have been filed against my opponent and Donald Trump by the same think tank in Washington, D.C., right? Campaign Law Center. But here's the thing. It may have been illegal what they have done. It may have been against campaign finance rules. It may cause them both to have civil penalties and potentially even criminal penalties. Right. But we can't get over the first hoop for it because there's not enough. There's not a quorum on the FEC because those appointments haven't been made.
Right.
So that's a great example right there of something negligence in our government that's going to continue to allow these criminals to get in power and to stay in power.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to, thanks for pointing that out and, getting in the weeds like that. That doesn't make the headlines of all the other zany headlines of du jour. Right. So, all the more a case that we need someone like Cindy, a wonk in there catching these things. Right. And, let me just throw out one or two kind of litmus testy kind of questions. Like, so if you were in the House right now, would you back Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All bill?
Yep.
Awesome. Would you suddenly start taking money from Raytheon or Chevron or ExxonMobil or some giant corporation?
Never. And in fact, I'll tell you what, I worked in philanthropy for several years, and I was pushing and advocating for investment and divesting even funds in nonprofit land from these kind of places, into the dirty technologies, into lots of investments that have negative social consequences. Because a lot of times, and people don't also necessarily know that, but we throw them into mutual funds and whatever, and we just, if they're running, they're making money, good for us. But there's responsibility in where those dollars are going in things like our pension fund and things like that. So not only will I not take dollars into my own account or my own campaign from it, I will not be influenced by them because I don't want to hear what they have to say because I know what they have to say. But I also will advocate for continued divestment in every way, shape, or form. So I'm looking for all the loopholes that these folks get influence.
Love it. I love it. I want to pull up your website just real quick here. So like I said at the top, it's cindybanyai.com. Sorry if I'm butchering your name every time I say it. Obviously you can donate, that's a critical grassroots campaign. Like she just said, she doesn't take corporate PAC money. She has no interest in ever taking corporate PAC money. So she needs people like us to donate, right? All her policies are outlined here, some great endorsements. You can go click through to her UN program. You have a mechanism for people to donate and volunteer. I'm assuming you have phone banking, text banking.
Absolutely.
Right on. Anything on here that you want to highlight? It's a great site. It's pretty comprehensive. All kinds of, got a picture of you as a badass boxer on there. Can't beat that.
Yeah. Tell my personal story on there. And, I'm running a hand to mouth campaign. So, I maintain this. So, I do the best that I can. But we have a couple of cool things on there also. So we do have a swag store. We got some of the hottest stuff, Democratic swag, according to some people on Twitter, including the Mama Said Knock You Out Razorback tank. So you can get one of those. Allusion to me being a boxer, but also you can check out my podcast there. Right. And also the Give 'em Hell Cindy, that was a local pundit giving me some encouragement. And I told him I'd put his name on a t-shirt. And so there we go. Because that's the kind of reputation I have around our town is, I'm just out there, fighting, but fighting for the people. But also check out my podcast. I get to interview some amazing people. Most recently, I interviewed Dr. James Galbraith, economist out of University of Texas, about how the economy really works and how we need to address COVID before we can actually get back to fixing the economy. Great stuff. Candidates across the country. I have a great expose one that I'm going to be doing tomorrow with a doctor talking about PPE and corruption in the state of Florida. So check out that one next week. But that's called Dr. Cindy Speaks. And if you don't see it on my website, you can check it out on Apple Podcasts and just about anywhere you listen and enjoy podcasts.
Awesome. Yeah, but most importantly, donate, volunteer, vote on November 3rd. I saw the debate. Are there more coming up? Are there subsequent debates happening with you and the Mr. Donalds?
Yes. And let me just say how historic it is. There has never been a debate for Florida 19 between Democrats and Republicans, almost in the entire history of the district, because this was like a dynastic district before it was redistricted in 2010. And so he's astonishingly, we've done 3 debates so far, and we have 3 more debates scheduled and potentially even more depending on how things go. But I'm absolutely, I love it. I'm happy to go in there and into the lion's den and say what needs to be said. And I'll tell you what, I'm creating raving fans everywhere I go.
That's cool. And I say he's a terrible Republican. That's of course true policy wise, but to his credit, it's probably not terribly common for a deeply red district for the Republican to be that open to that series of debates. So to his credit for participating in those, that's what democracy is about. And that's, good on him for that component of it. Anyone else in your district or on your ballot that you're running with, that you endorse, that you support, that you want to give a plug to?
Well, yeah. So I'll actually tell you that I have been working to collaborate with Democrats all across the state of Florida. That's been really important to me because we do have a historic situation here in Florida. We are running Democrats in almost every single House and Senate district across the state. And, we're all scrappy underdogs. So we decided to band together, a lot of us. So everybody in my immediate vicinity, I've endorsed for the most part. Sarah McFadden, Maureen Porras, Anselm Weber is running for House. Rachel Brown, Catherine Norman, Alan Ellison is also no none left behind. He's Florida 17. We're banded together. Local candidates, City Council, Jacqueline McMiller for Fort Myers, Mayor, Connie Martin running for City Council, Todd Truex running for County Commissioner. I mean, almost every single person I could bring into my orbit, I did, because that is what I do. I collaborate, I work together, I pool resources. That is how somebody like me, who was outspent and outraised in the primary, was able to win by 16 points. And I'm cruising the same way into the general election, because what matters is hard work and commitment to the people. And when they see that we collaborate and work together and can still get things done, man, that moves mountains.
Awesome. So I'm going to say once again, if you want progressive change, if you want to support a Democrat in a no Dem left behind type of district, right? It's, stop throwing money at Amy McGrath, right? Stop throwing money at races where it's not going to have a lot of impact, right? Or Sarah Gideon or whatever, right? Cindy could use your money. This is a winnable seat. It's a little bit of a tough haul, but it's certainly a winnable seat. So she needs our help to do so. So cindybanyai.com, go donate, go volunteer, share this video, share her socials, right? Go like her page, tell your friends, call your cousins, your grandparents, whoever's in Florida 19, and, encourage them to check out Cindy's platform. And, this is a seat we can win on November 3rd. Thank you for running, and thanks for all of your policy work heretofore. I look forward to speaking to you at some point and calling you Representative Banyai. So I look forward to that day. And thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely appreciate it. And thank you so much for this platform. And, let's do it.
Right on. Thank you, Cindy. Bye.